The shocking reason Paul claimed to be a slave at 3 a.m., untold biblical truths. The clock struck 3, slicing through the silence of the night like a knife. Paul gasped, eyes wide, his heart hammering against his ribcage. He wasn't alone. Shadows flickered at the edges of the room, twisting and swirling like smoke from an extinguished candle. The air was thick, almost electric, and it caught in his throat, leaving him breathless. This was more than a restless night, it felt like the dawn of a revelation. Paul could feel it pulse through his veins, an urgent whisper that something ancient and powerful was stirring to life. His mind raced back to the stories his grandmother used to tell him, tales of battles fought in all corners of history, of voices lost in the echoes of time. The walls of his small apartment seemed to lean in closer, watching him, as if the very fabric of his reality was about to unravel. And then, without warning, an image flashed before him, a tattered book with a cracked spine. The words slave and freedom rang out with an intensity that shook him to the core. This was not just about him anymore, this was about an enigma that had remained hidden beneath layers of time. What was Paul so desperate to uncover? He felt a deep chill wrap around him, wrapping him in its icy fingers. It was unsettling, like the sound of distant thunder looming over a quiet town, a reminder that confusion reigned with a grip stronger than iron chains. His fingers trembled against the worn cover of an old journal, the one he'd been hiding under his bed for years. He could almost hear the pages whispering secrets in the dark, secrets that begged to be revealed. Just what did it mean to claim one's heritage, to stand defiantly in a world where history felt like quicksand? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The dim light flickered again, setting his heart racing anew. Paul could feel the past wrapping around him like a fog, whispering his name, pulling him deeper into the mystery. Was he really a vessel for something greater, something larger than himself? Was there a truth hidden in the shadows, waiting for him to take the leap? He felt the weight of expectation press down on him, the kind of pressure that could spark either greatness or disaster. Catching his breath, he felt compelled to dive headfirst into this void of uncertainties. What awaited him on the other side of this night? The air grew heavier, thick with an unseen tension. Paul clutched the journal tighter, a lifeline against the dark mystery that surrounded him. The shadows didn't retreat, instead, they rippled, moving closer, closing the distance like old friends welcoming him home. His instincts screamed for him to run, but curiosity gnawed at his insides. With trembling fingers, he pried open the journal, revealing pages that were yellowed with age and smeared with the sweat of forgotten tears. It smelled of dust and history. Each phrase echoed like a drum in the night, tribal chants reaching through time. As he leaned closer, he could almost hear the soft murmurs of souls lost, cries for justice still unresolved. Then he saw it, a name scribbled in the margins, repeated over and over as if it was a mantra: Elijah. Who was Elijah? A simple name, but one so laden with significance. Who had this person been in his family's story? The shadows flickered again, and Paul felt them lurch toward him, pulling him deeper into an abyss of unsettling thoughts. His heart raced as the words on the page began to blur, morphing into an image of chains, not chains of iron, but shackles of silence. The legacy of unspoken pain. Could he truly claim his heritage when he didn't even know its roots? Anxiety clawed at his chest. His grandmother had never spoken of slavery, it was a hushed subject, avoided like a disease. Why hadn't she told him? The darkness felt alive, pulsating in sync with his heartbeat, urging him to search for answers. He needed to know. With newfound determination, he let his eyes roam the pages, searching for anything that might guide him. Suddenly, a phrase caught his eye: "The truth shall set you free." The intensity of it struck him, sending a jolt through his veins. What truth? What did it mean for him? Here, now, a loud crack echoed through his apartment, like thunder cracking wide open a storm. He jolted upright, heart pounding. The shadows ceased swirling and froze, as if time had momentarily stopped. In the silence that followed, Paul held his breath, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Then, without warning, a whisper slipped through the air, more like a shiver than a sound. "Help me!" The very essence of the plea resonated through his bones. It was as if an unseen entity reached out, beckoning him to uncover something buried deep. Paul felt a chill race down his spine. Who was asking for help? Was it Elijah? Did this spirit belong to someone trapped between two worlds, urging him to act? The urgency in the whisper twisted his insides. It demanded action. That he stood abruptly, the journal falling from his hands, pages fluttering like trapped birds to the floor. He had to leave the safety of his apartment, had to find the answers somewhere beyond these walls, or risk being consumed by the very shadows he had felt creeping closer all night. Heart racing, he rushed to look for his jacket, each second pressing harder on him. What awaited him outside? What truths lay hidden in the moonlight? As he reached for the door, a frigid breath swept through the room, swirling like a storm, an unmistakable warning or a call to action. He hesitated, the door handle cold against his skin. With a deep breath, he turned the knob and stepped into the unknown, leaving behind the flickering shadows, bracing for whatever awaited him outside. What secrets were lurking in the darkness, and would he be brave enough to face them? The moment Paul stepped outside, the night air slammed against him with a chilling embrace. The streetlights flickered, casting long, eerie shadows that danced along the pavement. He could feel the pulse of the city, its heartbeat syncopated with his own. What awaited him? Was the truth he sought hidden in the night or lurking in the corners of his mind? Every sound seemed amplified. The rustling of leaves, distant sirens, and murmurs of late-night conversations wrapped around him, a cacophony of life contrasting his racing heart. He walked hesitantly, each step a question mark lingering in the silence. In the grip of dark thoughts, he remembered his grandmother's photo he had seen earlier, her eyes alive with stories untold. What had she known? What had been swept under the family rug, buried beneath layers of shame? Elijah loomed large in his mind, a figure who had clearly changed the course of their heritage. Turning onto a narrow alley, Paul hesitated as a cold wind whispered through the cracks between the buildings. It felt almost deliberate, a beckoning. Shadows lurked in the corners, watching him. The journal's words repeated like an incantation in his thoughts, "The truth shall set you free." But which truth? Suddenly, a soft sob broke the stillness. It was faint yet raw, echoing through the passageway. Driven by a mixture of dread and determination, Paul followed the sound. He moved cautiously, his breath forming small clouds in the night air, a stark reminder of his pulse thrumming in his ears. In a dimly lit corner, he spotted a figure huddled against the wall, shrouded in shadows. It was a woman, her face streaked with tears, cradling something close to her chest. Paul felt an unexplainable pull toward her. "Are you okay?" he ventured, his voice barely breaking the quiet. The woman looked up, eyes wide and glassy. "Help me," she whispered. Her voice was trembling, echoing the earlier plea he had heard in his apartment. There was a desperation in her gaze that paralyzed him momentarily. "Please. I can't escape." Confusion surged through him. "What do you mean?" He stepped closer, the fear of the unknown battling with the impulse to help. "My name is Elijah," she choked lightly, each word like a stone dropped into a still lake, sending ripples of shock through Paul. "I need you to hear my story. They don't want the truth to be known." Paul's heart raced as he processed this. Was this a cruel joke, or had the journal led him here? "Your story?" he echoed, feeling completely unprepared for whatever this meant. "Yes. The truth about our family," she continued, desperation rising in her tone. "It goes deeper than you know. They've kept it hidden. Silent chains bind us. You have to listen." Her words struck him like a lightning bolt. He remembered the blurred images from the journal, the chains of silence. An eerie realization dawned on him. Was he meant to carry this burden? Was he the one to break those chains? But before he could ask her anything, she suddenly gasped, eyes darting past him. "They're coming!" she whispered frantically, pulling him closer. "You must hurry before they find us." Paul's stomach dropped. Who was coming? Why was this happening? Confusion turned to fear as he grasped her arm, ready to flee. But deep down, he knew he stood on the precipice of something monumental, something that could change everything he thought he knew. As footsteps echoed in the distance, a heavy dread settled over him. They could be too late. "Follow me," Paul urged, yanking her to her feet. They raced down the alley, shadows closing in behind them like a predator ready to pounce. In the chaos, fragments of her plea echoed in his mind, truth chains escaped, the pieces of the puzzle shifted, but the whole picture remained maddeningly out of reach. As they ducked into another shadowy street, Paul couldn't shake the feeling that the true test was only about to begin. What awaited them out there in the darkness? Would he unlock the horrors of his ancestry, or would the whispers of the past swallow him whole? The chase was just beginning, and the truth was still waiting. Paul felt his heart hammering in his chest as they darted down the darkened street. The woman Elijah clutched his arm tightly. He could feel the tremor in her grip, fear coursing through her as they fled. Each footfall echoed ominously in the narrow space between the buildings, a reminder that they were not alone. "Where are we going?" he gasped, slowing just briefly to catch his breath. Shadows danced along the walls, and he could swear he heard whispers following them, echoing through the alleyways like ghosts of the past. "To a safe place," Elijah replied, her eyes wide and frantic. "Somewhere they can't find us. But we have to hurry." He nodded, adrenaline pumping through him like a live wire. They rounded a corner and sprinted into a vacant lot, illuminated only by the dim light of a flickering bulb hanging overhead. The lot was strewn with debris, old crates, and broken glass. Paul noticed how the light above seemed to pulse, almost breath-like, as if the universe itself were alive and watching them. "Who's coming?" he asked, glancing around, nerves tightening in his chest. Would whoever was tracking them look here? The anxiety clawed at him, gnawing like a rat in some dark corner of his mind. She hesitated, glancing back down the street they had just fled. "They've been running the family for years. They'll do anything to silence me." Her gaze locked on his, filled with an intensity that sent chills down his spine. "They know the truth about Elijah, about our bloodline." "Your bloodline?" he echoed, trying to connect the dots while every instinct screamed at him to escape. "What does that even mean?" "Generations of secrets of lies," she replied, her voice trembling. "My family tree is intertwined with chains, both literal and metaphorical. Elijah is not just my name. It's who I was, a survivor of the past." His mind spun as he replayed the words he'd read in the journal. "Silent chains bind us." He searched her face for answers. "You mentioned the truth, what is it? What did Elijah know?" She paused as if gathering her thoughts, the fear in her eyes glimmering with something darker. "The truth? It could break everything open. It could expose those who need to be silenced. It's why they're after me." Before he could respond, the sound of footsteps interrupted them, sharper now, more urgent. Broad silhouettes moved at the edge of the lot, dark figures cutting through the flickering light. "Hide!" Elijah hissed, pulling him behind a rusted dumpster. They crouched together, hearts pounding, breaths shallow. Paul's chest tightened further as he strained to hear the murmurs drifting closer. "They can't find out. Not yet. She must not escape with knowledge of the past." The voices were ominous, chilled with contempt. Panic crept in as he realized the implications. These were not just strangers, they were menacing shadows of his ancestry. "Paul," Elijah whispered, eyes wide, "if they catch me, they'll catch you too. You can't let them take me. You don't know what I carry." "What do you mean?" His heart raced as a thin sheen of sweat formed on his brow. Would he truly have to fight to protect her? They want control, she said urgently, over the truth. Over our legacy. If they can't silence me, they'll try to silence you. We must find a way to break the cycle. In that moment, he understood protection wasn't just about saving Elijah. It was about salvation. He felt shackles he didn't know he wore beginning to loosen. But which truth was he meant to carry? Would he become the trapper of their family's history or its liberator? As the footsteps grew closer, clarity painted over his fear. This was not just about the two of them anymore, it was about a legacy that had festered in silence for too long. Suddenly, a flashlight swept the alley, blinding them for a moment. Come out, Elijah. We know you're here. A voice roared, sending vibrations through the ground. The chase was tightening, shadows converging. He could hear the weight of history hanging in the air, and Paul felt the shift. Would he be the one to confront the demons of his lineage? Now. Elijah whispered, pushing him toward a narrow escape route. They bolted, hearts pounding, the truth trailing close behind. What were they running toward, and what awaited them on the other side? They darted through the narrow space between the buildings, adrenaline surging through Paul like a jolt of electricity. The city around them became a blur, the shadows lengthening and distorting, as if reacting to their frantic escape. Elijah led the way, her movements fluid despite the fear etched on her face. Stay close. She urged, her voice barely above a whisper but urgent enough to cut through the chaos. Paul felt his heart pounding against his ribcage, a jagged rhythm that matched the uncertain pace of their flight. Up ahead, the alley opened up to a series of dilapidated doorways. He glimpsed faded letters on an old sign, Williams' Sons Shipping Company, and instinctively reached for her hand, squeezing it tightly. Are we safe here? She paused, eyes scanning the darkened entrance of the building that loomed before them. For now, she said, inhaling sharply. But we have to stay quiet. As they slipped inside, the thick air clung to Paul's skin like a shroud. Dust motes swirled in the dim light filtering through broken windows, creating an eerie glow. He could hardly hear his own breath, too focused on the sound of their pursuers just outside. Shadows flitted past the door, and a chill ran down his spine when he caught a glimpse of a figure, tall and menacing, blocking their exit. Whatever you do, don't let them see you, Elijah warned, her voice tense. They'll know I'm with you. They pressed themselves against the wall, hearts in their throats. Paul felt the weight of secrecy bury deeper within him, the truth was heavy, and he feared the price they would have to pay for its revelation. They know you're here, one of the figures growled from the darkness. Don't make this harder than it has to be, Elijah. Paul's stomach twisted. Fear was tangible, filling the air like smoke. What do they want? He whispered, his eyes darting around for a window, an escape. Elijah's expression darkened. Control. They're afraid of what I carry, what I know. Then tell me. He urged, desperate. Please. I need to understand. Elijah's eyes glistened, reflecting the flickering light. My bloodline doesn't just carry a story, Paul. It's intertwined with a legacy that challenges everything they've built, everything they believe. Before he could formulate a reply, a sudden crash echoed through the building. The figures outside were throwing caution to the wind, determined to find them. Paul's pulse raced. They had to move. Follow me, Elijah said, urgency igniting her command. She led him deeper into the labyrinth of the old warehouse, navigating through stacks of crates and crumbling walls. With every step, the whispers of their pursuers grew louder. Fuck. He cursed under his breath, the tension coiling tighter with each echoing thud of a footstep getting closer. They needed to find a way out. What if they catch us? We can't let that happen. She snapped, eyes fiery with determination. We need to break the cycle. I can't do this without you. Without me? He asked, confusion thickening the air between them. What do you mean? The truth. It's your legacy too. You're bound to it as much as I am, she exclaimed, her voice rising in intensity. Our fates are intertwined, Paul. Everything that binds me also binds you. They halted suddenly, pressed against a wall where the shadows felt thicker. The words lingered, the weight sinking in. He was part of this, whether he wanted to be or not. Come out, Elijah. We just want to talk. Another voice rang out, sharp and insistent, sending icy fingers down his spine. Where's the exit? Paul asked, desperation rising as the options began to dwindle. Elijah's gaze found a narrow doorway at the far end, barely visible in the low light. Through there. But we'll need to make a break for it. All together. He pressed, knowing the moment they exposed themselves, they'd be targets. Yes. On my count, she responded, her determination returning. 1, 2. Then they heard a crash. The door they had just come through shattered against a heavy boot, and shadows spilled into the room like a tide. Now. Elijah shouted. They bolted, charging through the doorway as everything erupted behind them. The night swallowed them once more, air rushing past as they sprinted into the unknown, haunted by the truth that could set them free or seal their fates forever. As they dashed into the dark recesses of the street, Paul's mind raced with fear and resolve, realizing he'd crossed a line where backtracking was impossible. The truth was out there, and it was only a matter of time before it caught up to them. What would they risk to uncover it? Paul felt the pavement press hard against his soles, the weight of the world on his shoulders. Every instinct screamed for him to run faster, but the air around him felt like a dense fog, thickening the fear coursing through his veins. Elijah was right beside him, her determination fueling his own, but he couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom lurking just behind them. The streets twisted and turned, empty except for the distant echoes of their footsteps, muffled shouts from their pursuers hanging in the air like a noxious cloud. He could hear the low murmur of voices each time the shadows drew closer. They were hunting. For them. Where are we going? Paul managed to breathe out, uncertainty clawing at his throat. After the docks. Elijah replied, glancing back at him. It's our best chance. They won't expect us to go there. The docks. A surge of dread washed over him. The place where cargo containers towered like giant sentinels, casting long shadows over the dark waters. It would be risky, but where else could they go? His mind raced, trying to put pieces together. A legacy intertwined with a truth he had yet to grasp fully. A loud crash erupted from behind, metal clanging against metal, a reminder that escape was fleeting. They darted into a narrow alleyway, the dank smell of garbage and salt stinging their nostrils. Keep quiet. Elijah hissed, and they pressed themselves against the cold brick wall. A group of dark silhouettes crept into view, scanning every corner, their movements deliberate and calculated. Paul's heart thundered in his chest. He could hear the low murmur of their conversation, the threat lacing their words. Keep looking. She can't have gone far, a voice growled. Paul clenched his fists, trying to hold back the fear threatening to spill over. He barely even knew what was at stake, just that it meant everything. Just then, from the darkness ahead, they spotted a faint light bleeding through a cracked window. We can't stop now, Elijah whispered. Follow me. In a flash, they moved through the dim alley, intent on reaching the safety of the light. As they approached the source, fear gripped him tighter. The window revealed a room, cluttered with discarded items, a refuge, perhaps. They climbed through with hesitance, hoping the light would be their salvation. Inside, the air felt almost still, a stark contrast to the chaos beyond. It took a moment for their eyes to adjust, but it soon became clear that they weren't alone. A figure stood in the corner, cloaked in shadows. Who the hell are you? Paul's voice trembled, breaking the silence. Relax, the figure said, stepping into the light. The features were obscured but undeniably familiar. I'm a friend. We don't have much time. Paul felt a flicker of recognition. It's you. He exclaimed. I was hoping you'd remember. We need to talk about what's coming. You don't have much time, the figure urged, urgency lining their voice. Elijah's gaze darted between Paul and the newcomer, suspicion clear in her eyes. What do you know about us? She demanded. I know everything, the figure replied, a smirk forming as they looked between them. About your legacy, what it means for you both, how it ties into the prophecy. What prophecy? Paul asked, confusion mixing with a sense of intrigue. His heartbeat began to slow just enough to focus. The one that foretells the return of bloodlines thought to be extinguished. And they're hunting you to stop it, the figure said, conviction ringing in each word. A shiver danced up Paul's spine. What do we do? You need to choose, the figure said, dark eyes locked onto his. Go back to your past, or push forward into an uncertain future. Elijah broke into the exchange. Our paths are already set. Stop playing games. But the figures shook their head. This is no game, Elijah. You both are already deep in it. The choice isn't yours alone anymore. Before Paul could voice his thoughts, the ground trembled beneath them. The murmurs outside grew louder, the tension climaxing. They were running out of time. Get ready to move. Elijah commanded. Adrenaline surging again. We find out what we're made of tonight. As they dashed for the exit, Paul's mind spiraled with one nagging question: would they uncover the truth about their legacy before it was too late? The rush of footsteps approached with a deafening speed, just as black shadows descended upon the room. Suddenly, Paul felt the icy grip of fate closing in around them. The walls shook as the shadows advanced, their whispers merging into a cacophony of dread. Paul's chest tightened, each breath feeling like a gasp against an unseen weight. What now? He shot a frantic glance at the figure, searching for answers in their mysterious eyes. Follow me. Came the command, and without hesitation, the stranger led them deeper into the room, pushing aside heaps of discarded crates. A narrow passage opened up, dimly lit and brimming with the smell of mildew. Elijah grabbed Paul's arm, her grip fierce. We can't just trust them. She hissed. They know something we don't, he replied, his voice steadying despite the whirlwind of terror swirling inside him. We need to know what's at stake. The newcomer glanced over their shoulder, urgency flooding their expression. There's no time for questions. We have to move. They slipped through the narrow opening, entering a long tunnel that stretched into darkness. The sound of their footsteps echoed ominously. With each step further away from the light, dread settled like a thick fog in Paul's throat. Where does this lead? Elijah whispered, her voice barely above a murmur. To safety. If we can get to the other side, we might stand a chance, the figure replied, still pushing ahead. But the path is dangerous. They'll be searching everywhere. As they hurried forward, adrenaline surged, propelling Paul into a pit of clarity. You mentioned a prophecy, he said, struggling to control his racing heartbeat. What does it say about us? You are the key to stopping them, the figure replied, glancing back with an intensity that made Paul shiver. You both hold a power that could return balance to the world, but it hinges on a truth buried in your past. The walls of the tunnel were rough, the air stale, as darkness cocooned them. Paul felt every ounce of doubt pressing down. But what if we can't? What if we fail? Then everything ends. The darkness will spread. The figure's reply was weighted with an urgent truth. It's not just about you anymore. Elijah interrupted, her voice sharper than ever. What do we have to do? You'll need to confront your legacy. Embrace it or break it completely. Paul halted, the words hitting him like a brick. Embrace it? What does that even mean? Your past is woven with a power you've yet to understand. A power they fear. If you look backward, you can uncover what guides you toward the future. But you must be willing to face what you've buried deep inside. The figure's eyes flickered, intensity mixed with something that looked uncomfortably like fear. The cacophony from above began to escalate, heavy footsteps pounding toward them. Paul's chest thudded painfully, knowing time was slipping through their fingers. There's got to be another way, he stated, panic creeping into his thoughts. Time is not on our side, the figure insisted, urgency wrapping around their words. The choice is yours, Paul. Push forward or look back. But you must decide now. Without warning, a crash resonated from the entrance behind them, splintering wood meeting flesh. Shadows flared with demands and chaos began to spill into the mouth of the tunnel. Paul could feel the shift in the air, the very fabric of his fate felt tangible, heavy, and cruel. Go! Elijah shouted, driving Paul forward. Now! They surged ahead as the tunnel constricted around them, reduced to a muddy path in the fading light. The sound of their hunters grew louder, an unrelenting storm of footsteps drawing closer. Paul felt desperation set in, the weight of both future and past pressing heavily, stealing away his breath. Just as they reached the mouth of the tunnel, Paul turned back one last time, the figure's cryptic warning echoing painfully, "What will you choose?" He stumbled forward, resolution starting to bloom. With Elijah at his side, they burst into the cool night air, filled with uncertainty but also the thrill of choice. But the lurking shadows engulfed the entrance behind them, cutting off any hope of retreat. Paul could feel a shift in the air, chillingly electric, signaling that the worst was yet to come. Where do we go now? Elijah asked, breathless but driven. And as they took their first steps into the open world, the weight of that choice loomed like a dark cloud, promising that the battle was only just beginning. The cold night air hammered against them, sharp and biting, as Paul and Elijah took stock of their surroundings. Tall, twisted trees loomed over a clearing just beyond the tunnel, their dark silhouettes cutting into the star-strewn sky. Every rustle of leaves sent shivers spiraling down Paul's spine. Where do we even go? He muttered, his voice thick with apprehension. There. Elijah pointed toward a dilapidated cabin nestled among the trees. We can hide inside. Before he could respond, they were racing toward the cabin, hearts pounding, and shadows drawing closer. The wooden structure looked like it hadn't seen life in years, but it offered the only glimmer of sanctuary. Paul pressed open the creaking door, cringing at the sound echoing through the night. Inside, the air was stale, filled with dust and remnants of old memories. Faded photographs hung crookedly on the walls, catching moonlight that seeped through broken windows. It was a place frozen in time, just like his memories he struggled to confront. But there was no time for reflection now. Quick! Elijah urged, slipping inside and scanning for any signs of threats. We can barricade the door, we don't have time. They'll find us. Paul shouted, his panic bubbling over as he paced the small room. What do you mean embrace your legacy? I don't even know what you're talking about. Elijah stepped closer, their breaths mingling in the musty air. You're searching for answers, Paul. We're in this together. If you don't confront whatever's haunting you, we're done for. We'll never escape. Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the stillness, startling them both. Paul glanced toward the door, which rattled violently. The weight of shadows bore down, their sinister whispers flooding the air. He felt a throbbing ache in his chest that spoke of both fear and revelation. What if, he began, voice trembling, what if the truth is too horrible to face? Then we have to face it together, Elijah replied firmly. Whatever it is, we can handle it. But we have to know what we're up against. Paul swallowed hard, his throat dry and tight. Memories flashed before him, visions from his childhood he thought he had buried deep. Faces flickered like dying flames, his past crawling back to him as the shadows pushed against their fragile haven. Do you remember last summer, at the old church? He asked abruptly, catching Elijah off guard. That mural, it had something to do with something bigger, didn't it? I don't understand how it connects, but it all feels wrong. Yes. Elijah's eyes widened, catching the spark of memory in his words. It depicted a battle between light and dark, and we were there. We saw it. The image hit him, a terrifying tapestry of fate that knotted his stomach. If I am a key, as they said, maybe I'm meant to tie the two together. A loud thud resounded, followed by a sinister hiss. Shadows seeped through the cracks in the door, almost alive, clawing to get inside. The sound grew louder, echoing that which lay beyond their fragile sanctuary. Now's your chance, Elijah urged softly, to embrace it. Whatever you've pushed away, take it back. In that moment, everything flashed as past and the darkness that haunted him. Paul felt a flicker of determination push through the fear. It ignited something within him, a whisper of his own truth. But just as he grasped the edges of understanding, the door splintered. The shadows surged, determined to claim their souls. Bright eyes gleamed amidst the dark, and he braced for what lay ahead. Paul! Elijah screamed, her voice slicing through the chaos. We have to act now, make your choice. He could feel the weight of that revelation pressing down. But could he wield it? Was he ready to confront the truth he had long avoided? As shadows danced at the door, he took a deep breath. Okay, I'll do it. A flash of light burst from within him, spurred by the dawning realization. But just as he reached for that power, everything went dark. And then a voice from the void whispered, but what if the truth you unleash is worse than the darkness itself? Their fates trembled. On the knife edge of uncertainty, the battle far from over. Paul gasped, the darkness enveloping him like a shroud. A weight pressed against his chest, thick and suffocating. There was no more time to ponder whether he was ready, the shadows were pushing in, hungry and relentless. Elijah's voice broke through the murkiness. Paul! You're the light. Focus. He struggled to find that spark, the one he just felt. But it slipped further away, like sand through his fingers. He shut his eyes, willing himself to remember. The mural. The faces. The whispers that had haunted him for so long rode on the edges of his consciousness. Embrace it. Elijah shouted, the urgency in her voice wrapping around him like a lifeline. With a cry, Paul clutched his head. What do I do? What do I do? The shadows howled, their sound a terrible crescendo filling his mind. Memories swirled, crashing against one another, laughter from a birthday long buried, tears from a loss he never accepted, moments of fear that shaped his very being, secrets that had festered inside like an untreated wound. You have to confront them. Elijah's command struck him as the door buckled under the force of the dark. All of it. Face your truth. Her urgency pierced through. Okay. Okay. He inhaled deeply, feeling the walls of reality closing in. I am Paul Claiborne. As if reciting a spell, the name echoed in the dark, the cadence of each syllable snapping into place. Suddenly, warmth surged inside him. Confidence flickered, igniting an ember of light. Light and dark, he breathed, I am both. The shadows paused, as if thrown off by the sound of his voice. Paul felt that spark grow, swelling in his chest like a cosmic explosion. It spread through him, wrapping around him like a cloak, pushing against the darkness with resolve. Do you see? It's your choice. Elijah's encouragement ignited that flame further. Choose. I choose light. He roared, voice rising above the chaotic howls. The instant it left his lips, he thrust his hands forward. In that moment, an explosion of light erupted from him, cascading in golden waves, illuminating every inch of the cabin. The shadows shrieked, recoiling as if stung, their tendrils shriveling and retreating to the corners. The room transformed. No longer a graveyard of shadows, but a sanctuary where sunlight streamed through the splintered windows. Paul felt the familiar weight lift, and he realized he was not alone. Elijah stood beside him, bathed in the same light. I can't believe it. She gasped. You did it. But the victory was short-lived. Through the cracks of the cabin walls, more shadows slithered. Eerie voices began to chant in unison, a chorus rising from beyond that chilled his bones. "They won't stop," Paul stammered, his breath coming in frantic bursts. "They can't take what you've just uncovered. Whatever you faced within yourself has the power to keep them at bay. But we need to harness it, Paul." Silhouettes swirled just outside, clawing to break through. The hissing chorus intensified, a blend of malice and despair that rattled his senses. "Can we?" Elijah began, but Paul cut her off. "Pull the energy of the mural. Remember it. We've already seen it." As he concentrated, the images surfaced. The bright colors, the struggle unfurling between light and dark, it all came rushing back to him. The mural was alive, a tether connecting him to the forces within. "Together!" he shouted, channeling that energy. Elijah nodded, eyes fierce and determined. "Together!" The light surged, stronger this time, weaving their histories into a tapestry of defiance against the engulfing darkness. The walls of the cabin trembled with their focusing power, the very ground quaking beneath them. In the midst of it all came the voice again, sharper, almost mocking. "You think this will save you? You unleash something you cannot control." "Shut up!" Paul screamed, digging deep within. "I can control it. We can control it." But doubt lingered, gnawing at the edges of his resolve. He fought against it, the shadows in his mind battling the light he summoned. As tendrils of dark raced toward them, Paul faced the chilling reality: what waited outside wasn't just any darkness, it was the weight of his past, all that he had feared to confront. "Paul! Where is the key?" Cold realization hit him like a punch. "The key. I am the key." With that understanding came the full force of his determination. He had to unlock something deeper, something that lay buried beneath layers of pain and guilt. But could he truly unleash what lay dormant inside him? And at what cost? A violent rattle from the door echoed in response, promising that this was just the beginning. What lay beyond the door? Would confronting his past free him or ensnare him in darkness forever? Just as the wall of shadows threatened to engulf them, Paul found himself holding on to the flickering light inside. "I am the key," he yelled, grounding his voice in newfound authority. With burning determination, he reached deeper into himself, through the layers of fear and shame. The shadows swirled, growing chaotic, but he could feel the golden light swell within him, clawing against their relentless advance. "Paul! Focus!" Elijah shouted, her voice breaking through the clamor. The energy pulsing from them felt almost tangible, a thread of fate binding their spirits together. Paul's heart raced, and he could feel every shiver of fear in the marrow of his bones. The weight of his ancestors called out to him through the storm of darkness, each face flashing before him in desperate need for liberation. That he steadied his breath. "I need to know what you want from me," he yelled into the darkness, echoing the silence around them. "I can't run anymore. I'm ready to embrace this legacy." The shadows paused momentarily, and Paul felt the ground beneath him tremble. He saw a fracture of light pierce through the shadows, illuminating glimpses of past anguish. "You think you can challenge your fate?" A voice from the shadows creaked, mocking him. It felt as cold as ice, slithering through him. "You are nothing without your history." "No." Paul bellowed, feeling the light inside intensify at the words. "My history makes me strong. I will not be a puppet to these shadows." He extended his hands outward, sending ripples of shimmering brightness crashing into the encroaching darkness. Each pulse created an ethereal barrier, blocking the malevolent figures. Light burst around him like a supernova, and he could feel Elijah's presence merging with his, their spirits intertwining like vines of strength and courage. "Use the mural. Let its truth guide you," Elijah urged, her voice a rallying cry. He could hear the rhythmic beats of the distant mural echoing in his heart, a silent anthem of fight and resilience. Drawing on every ounce of strength, Paul envisioned the mural, the vibrant colors, the epic struggle splashed across its canvas of history. A flood of memories cascaded through him: pain, joy, survival, sacrifice. Each piece melded into a blinding wave, bursting forward with the intent to vanquish. Together, Elijah. Channel it. He shouted, their voices wrapping around one another, fueling the light like a roaring fire. As the shadows recoiled, a low growl began to ripple through the air, a warning of the malevolent energy attempting to push through their fragile barrier. Paul clenched his jaw, determination blazing in his eyes. We are not alone. We carry them with us: the past, the stories, the strength to change what binds us. The silhouette of an ancestor appeared, face smudged by time yet familiar, urging Paul to keep pushing forward. The clarity washed over him: he wasn't just fighting for himself but everyone shackled to these chains, those hidden truths yearning to break free. Now! Elijah shouted, and Paul unleashed the full might of his light, a cyclone of brilliance that consumed the space. The shadows screamed, shattering upon contact, evaporating like mist in the dawn. Each wail fractured the silence of the night as Paul's heart surged, his very essence entwined with the legacy of his past. Yet, deep inside, a throbbing fear lingered: what if this choice changed everything? The storm quieted, dissipating into a resplendent luminescence. They stood amidst soft flickering lights, breathing heavily, filled with the weight of what just transpired. A profound silence hovered around them, shivers of energy receding. We did it," Elijah breathed, incredulous as the remnants of shadows retreated, powerless against their shared resolve. "Or have we?" Paul whispered, uncertainty creeping back as darkness lingered just beyond the fringes of their newfound glow. "Elijah, this is just a beginning," Paul admitted, glancing around, realizing the burden of their victory must come with accountability. "We owe it to ourselves to continue, trace every step and uncover every truth. We must rebuild this legacy together." With a determined nod, Elijah gripped his hand. "Together," she affirmed, and as they stepped out of the cabin, the night shimmered with the promise of a new dawn. A destiny forged by embracing the very things they were once afraid to face: the shadows and the light alike. As they walked on, side by side, the path glittered with what lay ahead, each step a reclamation of their identity. The echoes of their past guided them, a testimony to the resilience they embodied, warriors of truth rising from chains once forged in silence. This was their legacy, and with every breath, they would carry the weight of those who came before them. No longer bound by the whispers of darkness but emboldened by the strength of truth, they turned to each other, an unbreakable bond sealed between them, the spectral figures of their history watching over with proud eyes. As the dawn began to break, painting the sky with hues of rebirth, Paul whispered, "Let us show the world what it means to be free." And in that moment, they stepped into the light of a new beginning together, eternally breaking the chains. Now it's time for you to join the journey. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that dive even deeper into the heart of our legacies. Smash that like button now. Feed the algorithm and show your support for these powerful narratives. I want to hear from you. Flood the comment section with your reactions, thoughts, and theories about this ending, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need this empowering conclusion in their lives. You're part of a community that understands the importance of connection. Let us stand united.